There is something happening to millions of elderly people every single night, right now, while they sleep. And the terrifying part is that most of them have no idea it is happening to them. They go to bed feeling fine. They close their eyes, and some of them never wake up. This is not rare. This is not an exaggeration. This is a medically documented reality that researchers at Harvard Medical School, the Cleveland Clinic, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, and the National Institutes of Health have been warning about for years. And today, I am going to tell you exactly what daily habit is silently setting the stage for this to happen, what the science says about why it is so deadly, and most importantly, what you can do starting tonight to protect yourself or someone you love. Let us start with the truth about what is actually killing elderly people in their sleep, because most people assume it is simply old age or a heart attack. But research tells a far more specific and preventable story. The condition at the center of this is called obstructive sleep apnea, and it is one of the most underdiagnosed and most dangerous conditions affecting older adults today. Roughly 6 million people have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, but in reality, this disorder is thought to affect 30 million people, and one study found that 56% of people aged 65 and older have a high risk of developing obstructive sleep apnea. That means right now, more than half of all elderly people are living with a condition that stops their breathing repeatedly throughout the night, and the majority of them do not know it. They wake up every morning tired, groggy, and confused about why they feel so exhausted, and they blame it on age. But age is not the problem. The problem is what is happening inside their airway every single night while they sleep. Here is what obstructive sleep apnea actually does inside the body, because understanding the mechanism is what makes this so alarming. Sleep apnea refers to a sleep disorder in which people have reduced or paused breathing during sleep, and these repeated breathing disruptions can reduce sleep quality and contribute to serious health complications. If left unaddressed, sleep apnea can be a life-threatening problem. Every time breathing stops, which can happen dozens, even hundreds of times per night, oxygen levels in the blood drop. The heart begins to race. The nervous system goes into emergency mode. The body partially wakes itself up just enough to restart breathing, and then the whole cycle begins again, night after night, week after week, year after year. The cumulative damage to the heart, the brain, and the blood vessels is catastrophic. In a 5-year study of nearly 11,000 people, those with obstructive sleep apnea had a higher risk of sudden cardiac death. Those at greatest risk were aged 60 and older with moderate to severe apnea. When their oxygen saturation levels dipped below 78%, preventing air from flowing into the lungs, their risk increased by 80%. And here is the detail that should make every elderly person and every family member sit up and pay close attention. People with obstructive sleep apnea are more than 2.5 times as likely to experience sudden cardiac death between midnight and 6 in the morning as those without the condition. That is the window when elderly people are most deeply asleep, most relaxed, and most vulnerable. The heart stops not from a random event, but from the cumulative damage of an airway that has been collapsing and recovering thousands of times. Experts believe that heart arrhythmias may be one of the main reasons behind sudden death in those with sleep apnea, and research shows that sudden death is more common in people with obstructive sleep apnea who are older than 60, have more severe apnea, or have very low oxygen levels. Now here is what most people never connect: the daily habit that is directly making all of this dramatically worse. It is not something exotic. It is not a rare medication or a complicated disease. It is something hundreds of millions of people do every single evening without giving it a second thought. It is drinking alcohol before bed. This one daily habit, a glass of wine with dinner, a beer while watching television, a nightcap before sleep, is silently turning a manageable condition into a potentially fatal one for elderly people all over the world. Research indicates that alcohol may increase the risk of sleep apnea by 25%, and moderate consumption of alcohol, up to an hour before bedtime, can reduce melatonin by nearly 20%. Melatonin is one of the body's key sleep regulators, and reduced levels can cause restlessness, which leads to next-day fatigue. But that is only the beginning of the damage. The more dangerous effect is what alcohol does to the muscles in the throat. Alcohol worsens sleep apnea by relaxing the muscles in the throat, which narrows the airway and increases the likelihood of snoring and breathing interruptions during sleep. And because alcohol can make apnea events more frequent and severe, experts often recommend avoiding drinking if you have sleep apnea, especially in the hours before bedtime. And here is the detail that most people never hear. Alcohol relaxes your muscles while you sleep and can reduce what is called an arousal response time. This is the body's natural impulse to wake up when you cannot breathe. With this arousal response diminished, an apnea event is prolonged, which reduces oxygen flow to the lungs. Think about what that means for an elderly person who already has sleep apnea. Without alcohol, their body was struggling to restart breathing after each pause. With alcohol in their system, the body's emergency wake-up signal is blunted. The pause lasts longer. Oxygen drops lower. The heart is placed under greater and greater stress. And on a bad night, the heart cannot recover. But alcohol before bed is not the only daily habit silently making this worse. There are several others that compound the danger, and they are all things that most elderly people do without any awareness that they are putting themselves at risk. The first is sleeping position. Over 50% of people with sleep apnea find their symptoms worsen when they sleep on their backs, which may be caused by the tongue sliding back and blocking the airway and making it difficult to breathe. Most elderly people sleep on their backs because it feels comfortable and reduces joint pain. But for someone with undiagnosed sleep apnea, that sleeping position is turning every night into a medical emergency. The solution is simple, but requires consistency. Sleeping on your side, supported by pillows if necessary, can dramatically reduce the number of breathing interruptions through the night. The second dangerous daily habit is eating late at night. Eating late, especially heavy and high-fat meals, can exacerbate symptoms of sleep apnea. When you lie down soon after eating, your digestive system is still working hard, which can lead to acid reflux, bloating, and disrupted breathing. Research also shows that late-night eating disrupts circadian rhythms, which regulate sleep-wake cycles, and this misalignment can make you feel restless and prolong apnea episodes. Elderly people are often advised to eat smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day, but a common habit is a heavy dinner eaten close to bedtime, and that single habit is compounding sleep apnea severity every single night. The third habit is inconsistent sleep timing. A landmark study published in the prestigious journal Sleep, which examined nearly 90,000 participants from the UK Biobank over multiple years, found something remarkable. Sleep regularity, meaning the day-to-day consistency of sleep-wake timing, can be a stronger predictor of mortality risk than sleep duration itself. In other words, it is not just about how long you sleep, it is about whether you sleep and wake at the same time every day. Elderly people who stay up late some nights, sleep in on weekends, or nap irregularly throughout the day are disrupting their circadian rhythm in ways that directly worsen sleep apnea and increase mortality risk. And this brings us to the research that directly addresses how sleep duration relates to dying. A comprehensive meta-analysis examining 79 cohort studies with data collected up to October 2024 found that short sleep duration of less than 7 hours per night was associated with a 14% increase in mortality risk, while long sleep duration was associated with a 34% increase in mortality risk compared to the reference of 7 to 8 hours. This is critical information for elderly people because both extremes, sleeping too little and sleeping too much, are warning signs, and both are often caused by the same underlying condition, undiagnosed sleep apnea that is being silently worsened every night by the daily habits we have just discussed. Now, you might be wondering how to know if you or someone you love actually has sleep apnea. The warning signs are specific, and the NHS, Mayo Clinic, and National Council on Aging all agree on what to look for. The most common symptom is loud snoring, not just occasional snoring, but persistent, loud snoring that happens almost every night. Other major warning signs include waking up feeling exhausted despite a full night of sleep, waking up with a headache or dry mouth in the morning, needing to urinate frequently during the night, feeling drowsy during the day to the point of falling asleep while watching television or reading, and having difficulty concentrating or remembering things. Sleep apnea can also worsen mood and impair memory, and without treatment, untreated obstructive sleep apnea carries a higher risk of all-cause mortality, meaning people with sleep apnea are more likely to die of any cause compared to people who do not have sleep apnea. Perhaps the most alarming study we found in preparing this video came from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, which examined older adults with a mean age of 78 years and followed them for 14 years. The results showed that older adults with moderate to severe sleep apnea who also struggled with excessive daytime sleepiness were more than twice as likely to die as subjects who had neither problem, and about 55% of participants died during the follow-up period. More than half. In a study of elderly people who had both sleep apnea and excessive daytime tiredness. And the lead researcher made something very clear. The sleepiness alone was not the killer. The sleep apnea had to be present. Which means that right now, any elderly person who is both excessively tired during the day and snoring loudly at night is living in a medically elevated risk category for death, and most of them have no idea. So what can you do about this? The good news is that the research is equally clear about solutions, and many of them require no prescription, no machine, and no surgery. The first and most important step is to stop drinking alcohol within 3 to 4 hours of bedtime. This single change can significantly reduce the frequency and severity of apnea events through the night. Experts recommend avoiding alcohol for at least 3 hours before bedtime, and drinking before bed can worsen snoring and sleep apnea by relaxing the muscles in the throat and narrowing the airway. If you enjoy a drink with dinner, finish it early and give your body time to process it before sleep. The second change is to switch from sleeping on your back to sleeping on your side. Use a firm pillow behind your back to stop yourself from rolling over, or consider a specially designed positional pillow. The third change is to stop eating heavy meals within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime to prevent acid reflux and digestive disruption from worsening your breathing through the night. Beyond these lifestyle changes, the gold standard medical treatment is a CPAP machine, which delivers continuous air pressure through the night to keep the airway open. But for those who cannot tolerate CPAP, there are alternatives. Yoga and breathing exercises may improve oxygen saturation levels and strengthen respiratory muscles, which is beneficial since sleep apnea is often associated with decreased oxygen in the blood. And avoiding alcohol and smoking may reduce inflammation and swelling in the airways, improving breathing and sleep quality. There are also custom oral appliances, specialized mouth guards made by dentists that reposition the jaw during sleep to keep the airway open. These are FDA approved, covered by most major medical insurance plans, and far more comfortable for most elderly patients than a CPAP mask. The most important thing you can do after watching this video is to talk to a doctor. Not next month, not when the snoring gets worse, now. Because the research is unambiguous. Sleep apnea in elderly people is common, it is dangerous, and it is being made dramatically worse by daily habits that most people consider completely harmless. A glass of wine before bed, eating dinner late, sleeping on the back, going to sleep at different times each night. These habits are not innocent for an elderly person with undiagnosed sleep apnea. They are the difference between a manageable condition and a catastrophic one. And in the worst cases, they are the difference between waking up in the morning and not waking up at all. Share this video with every elderly person you love, because the information in it could genuinely save a life.